6 phone or video interview tips to nail the first round and be called for a second. Treating a phone interview as seriously as a normal face-to-face exchange can help you impress the recruiter and improve your chances of being hired. But to nail the first round of a phone or video interview, you should be aware of a few extra things and approach the conversation in a specific way. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask. And if you're doing as marvelous as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's go. Today I want to talk to you. I want to give you 6 quick tips to nail the first round of a phone interview or a video interview and be called for a second. Secret number 1, plan on being somewhere quiet. This is very important. I'm not talking about being in your car. You don't want to be next to a construction site either, right? You can book a meeting room at work, or make sure your dog is out with a dog walker, right? The thing here is you want to have complete silence where you are. If you have a newborn, make sure that the baby, the little one, is taken care of, and that you have your partner or a nanny taking care of the little one. The idea here is that to be in a complete professional space where you can answer the phone, you can answer the recruiter's questions, right? Do it at home if possible. Now, one thing that is very important is that try to have phone interview on a landline. The reason being, if you go with the cell phone and you have problems with network signals and you can't hear the person, or your phone battery is dead, that's just crazy, right? Nobody wants that. So you want to do it on the landline if possible. And I know earlier I said you can book a meeting room at work, but most specialists will recommend not doing a phone interview at work, because you never know. You never know who's going to walk into that meeting room, or you just never know. So do it outside the workplace if possible. Tip number 2, research the company and the interviewer. Now, if you think about it, if you had a regular interview, right? Let's say you had a regular face-to-face interview, you would research the company, right? So you want to go on the website, read. The good news here is that when you have a phone interview or a video interview, you can actually have, I think in the case of a phone interview, it's a lot easier, but you can have on your screen the company's website. Nonetheless, you want to research the company beforehand. Now, when it comes to researching, go on 3 things. There are 3 major platforms that can give you a lot of info about a company. Number 1, the company's own website. Number 2, you have LinkedIn, right? So you want to check out LinkedIn, the profile on LinkedIn, the page on LinkedIn, as well as a few employees work for the company. And you have third-party websites such as Glassdoor and Yelp, right? Because what you're trying to do, you're trying to get a feel of the company, right? If you go to their own website, they tell you what their peer people have written, right? That's the kind of info they want the whole world to know about them. But if you go on LinkedIn, same thing. But if you go on Glassdoor or Yelp, there you can read clients and employees' reviews, right? So you can get a better taste of what the company is really about when it comes to their culture, marketing methods, how they treat their employees, how much they pay, if they pay well, if they pay, if they don't pay that well. You can get an idea, all right? It's very important. So that is researching the company. Now, you have to also research the interviewer, the person talking to you. You want to, at a minimum, check the person's LinkedIn profile, if they have one, right? You want to do a quick Google search on them to see, when they went to school, what kind of activities they've had in the last few years. If you're lucky, you can see them on social media, on Facebook rather. That's also great, right? Facebook, Twitter, that's fantastic. The reason why, if you're able to have a mental map of the person you'll be speaking to, that gives you a leverage, right? You're able to understand how long they've been with the company. You understand his or her duties, his or her backgrounds, the role he or she plays within the company, because that tells you a lot about the kind of questions you'll be asked. Okay, now tip number 3, Smile throughout the conversation. I'm not talking about being a smiley face. No, I'm talking about projecting a sense of happiness, a sense of, I'm very grateful for having this phone call with you. I'm looking forward to working with you. Don't be like, okay, yes, no, yes, no. No. You want to open your mouth and be vibrant. All right? Smile through the conversation. You want to let the person know that you're a happy person, that you are interested in the position. Why? A lot of companies, especially large companies, are very, very, very cautious about employee morale and team mood. So they're very cautious about bringing folks who are naysayers or folks who have a bad a bad impact on the overall team's mood. So if somebody feels over the phone that you're not happy or that you're kind of like stressed person, chances are they might not invite you for a face-to-face interview, right? Because remember that in some cases, a phone interview is just a preliminary. It's just the first stage, the first step that will lead to a to a face-to-face interview, right? So you want to nail that first step. So smile, all right? I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation here about phone or video interview tips to successfully nail the first round and be called for a second. Now, if you love the clarity and quality of the content so far, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on the notification bell so you are informed whenever we drop a new new show rather. And we release new shows every single day, rain or shine. Also, you might want to share this info because I'm pretty sure somewhere somebody needs to hear this info. You can also like the content and comment below. Tip number 4, ask questions, right? You want to tell the interviewer that you are interested in the position, you've done your research, and you want to ask questions. Don't make this conversation over the phone or through a video platform be a monologue. You don't want that. If the recruiter feels like you are not asking questions, you are indirectly telling him or her that, hey, listen, I'm bored, I'm not really interested in this position. I don't know what kind of questions. You want to ask questions. And you can ask questions such as, what's the company culture like? How would you describe your ideal employee in this position? How does the company measure success? Which team will I work in? How do you see the development path for this position in the next 5 years? We actually did an entire show on the brilliant questions you can ask to impress your recruiter. You might want to check that show, that video. It has a lot of good information. We even included some of the simple questions you can ask, so that's very helpful. Now, it's very important to understand that if you're able to ask questions, you're telling the recruiter that you are a good fit for the company's need. You are a good fit for the company in this particular position, right? The idea is not just to ask silly questions or, filler questions just to no, you want to research the company beforehand and ask questions that are relevant and questions that will produce a compelling answer. Because what you want ultimately is for the recruiter to remember you. Because remember, that recruiter is probably talking to 5-10 people. So you're not the only candidate they're looking for, unless you are some kind of star and some kind of celebrity in the industry and only you can do that job. You bet that recruiter is talking to several people. So you want the recruiter to remember you and be able to call you back, and that's what you want. All right. Number 5, be energetic. It's very important. Your voice and tone matter a lot during a phone call or a video call, because you have to understand that your recruiter they can infer your attitude through how your voice sounds, right? This is why I was telling you earlier to be energetic, but also be what? Smile. It's important to be energetic, never be monotone. Nobody loves monotony. You don't want monotony, and monotone voices typically signify boredom, right? So you got to be very careful in terms of matching the cadence of your voice with the conversation, right? So this is very important. Now, one thing to be energetic, you got to think about timing. Some people are energetic in the morning, some people in the afternoon, some people in the evening. It's definitely up to you. I would say from experience, it's better to schedule an interview around 10 a.m. So it's not too early, it's not too late, because if you schedule the interview around 3 p.m., God forbid something happens, you've had lunch, you feel a little lethargic, a little lazy, you might not be at your best. But if you have it at 10 a.m., that's pretty good, right? Now, and the thing is, it's not about being, the idea here is to be energetic, because the last thing you want is to sound half asleep or uninterested or distracted, right? So part of the energy comes from the fact that you can create some kind of connection with the interviewer. You can use their name, you can call it by their first name, right? Like, again, in a very polite way, right? So you're not really sort of forcing yourself into their private space. But what you're trying to do here is you're trying to tell them that you are an open person, you are a sociable person, right? And the thing here is that you can also, if you're trying to re-energize the conversation, you can actually reframe the recruiter's words into your conversation. In other words, every time they finish talking, you can reframe the words. You can ask the question through their own statements, right? Another thing that's also very good, especially when it comes to creating energy or when it comes to reinvigorating the conversation, is to drink some water before the call. I'm not talking about coffee here. No, nobody wants you to, jump around and be overly happy. No, just drink water so that you don't have like a dry mouth. You really feel hydrated and you can wake up. Water can also wake you up if you are a little like half asleep. Water will wake you up. So that's what you want. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi, and we are still continuing our conversation about the phone or video interview tips to successfully nail the first round and be called for a second round. Now, tips number 6, be prepared. You want to be prepared in terms of, doing some trials and errors on yourself. Practice. You want to rehearse. You want to go through your own resume just to make sure that everything is fine. You want to answer some common interview questions, and you also want to have the necessary documentation handy, right? I mean, everybody knows the common interview questions, right? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your biggest weaknesses and strengths? Why do you want to leave your current job? Why do you want this job? What do you find interesting about our company? Tell me about a time you faced a challenge in the workplace and how you overcame it. What are your salary expectations? So those are common interview questions that you should be prepared for, that you should have solid answers for. Don't act surprised, when you're asking those questions, because by having these questions answered in advance, you'll never be thrown off guard, right? And the good thing is you can actually provide detailed and specific examples for each, right? Another thing that's very important is that if you're on the phone, if you have a phone interview, you can even pull up your resume and just have it in front of you, right? Now, the thing here is that just be prepared also for references, because a lot of candidates think that they'll be asked references when they're ready to be hired, and after the third or fourth round and they're ready to get the job, that's when the company will ask for references. No, some companies actually they act differently. They might ask you for a list of references on the spot to check in with after you call. So you make sure that you have a list handy, a list of references handy, and reach out to the people on that list in advance to ask for their permission to be contacted. Right? This is very important. And one way to do this is to share the role and company you're applying for with them so that they're already prepared if they do receive a call from your interviewer. Right? So that's what I'm talking about in terms of preparation. So the preparation is multi-level, right? Not only your personal preparation in terms of your resume, the preparation in terms of your list of references, the preparation in terms of answering the common interview questions, right? So this is basically what you need to do. All right. Now let's kind of wrap up today's conversation. So 6 phone or video interview tips to successfully nail the first round and be called for a second. Tip number 1, plan on being somewhere quiet. Number 2, research the company and the interviewer. Number 3, smile throughout the conversation. Number 4, ask questions. Number 5, be energetic. Number 6, be prepared. All right. Now, before I wrap up today's show, let me give you 2 pro tips. Number 1, write a follow-up thank you email. All right. Every time you speak to someone new at a company during the job interview process, it's very important to thank him or her for the time. So you can write a quick, thank you email to the recruiter, and you want to send it ASAP. You want to send it within a few hours of the phone interview. Don't wait until the next day or 2 days. No. You want to do it ASAP. And one thing you can also do is ask the recruiter if he or she has more questions for you, right? Because let's say, again, the idea here is to have a dialogue, not a monologue, right? So during the interview, you probably answered and asked insightful questions, but you also want to ask the interviewer if there are questions for you. And this is very important. And this lets the interviewer know that you're open to the challenge of more questions and that you are actively engaged in the interview process. All right. It's very important. All right. I will see you next time. And until then, stay marvelous.